You know what? For Monaco, that race wasn't half bad. If only Alonso had gotten the right call. Quite obviously, in terms of the winners and losers of the Monaco Grand Prix, Alonso is an obvious winner. Not only has he now restored his average finish of 3rd place again, he actually wasn't bluffing about his performance. That Aston Martin car has really got something about it that he is definitely someone that Max Verstappen should be really paying some close attention to. Yes, that Red Bull is the quickest car, but it wasn't quick by that much. It was all down to Max Verstappen really giving it the beans to make sure that Alonso wasn't really going to catch up. And I think Red Bull were actually playing Aston Martin and really exploiting their softly approach. This is the first time ever that the Aston Martin team has had to really be fighting at the high end and realizing that they have to make really close calls to try and determine what they're going to be doing up in the race. And they made that call to get onto the medium tyres instead of the inters, and it was right at the time, but ultimately it proved to be a little bit fruitless. They were really lucky that Alonso didn't lose 3rd place. Alonso did question the decision, so it wasn't down to Alonso, it was a team thing, but I'm not going to give Aston Martin a hard time. They are now fighting with the big guys, and this is just something that's going to happen. Ferrari make loads more mistakes, and considering that this was just the wrong call of tyre, this wasn't like a slow pit stop or a missing tyre or anything like that. Oh well, Alonso still got 2nd place, so he's got a slightly bigger trophy, so he's definitely a winner. But I mean, Max Verstappen, what more do I need to say? It goes to show, Max Verstappen, he's got the skill. In qualifying, riding the walls, that is something that the average driver just simply does not do. I'd like other drivers to actually have a go at winning a race, but I mean, come on, credit where credit's due here. Max Verstappen is clearly the biggest winner of the Monaco Grand Prix. His 2nd Monaco win now, he is slowly getting into the history books here, and he looked absolutely accomplished. And I think he actually enjoyed today for the fact that he actually had to challenge himself and really get that nervous tension, really capitalizing on his skills. The last few races had actually been a little bit lackadaisical, but now he was actually feeling the groove, really getting into the race and almost coming alive. And this was something that we hadn't really seen. Max Verstappen on the ragged edge because he has to be. That is the Max Verstappen that fought Lewis Hamilton in 2021. That's the guy. And speaking of guys, can we give a shout out please to the camera guys and the directors for the Monaco Grand Prix? The change in director from the local broadcaster to the Formula One management who do pretty much every other race, this was brilliant. The slightly different camera angles, but not too different to make it too alien to people that were used to all those camera angles, is something of a fantastic choice. You really got a better sense of speed of what you saw around the track, because we always thought that Monaco was a bore fest, and sure, there was a lack of overtakes in comparison to other Grand Prix, but it was still really cool, and we managed to actually make something out of nothing. And when the rain came down, oh, I was feeling kind of nervous. I could feel my heart really pumping more than average, despite the fact it is Monte Carlo, and it's not exactly the most exciting track. But this was actually pretty good. And the director here, the camera guy, bravo. And bravo, by the way, for Haas getting a deal with Alfa Romeo for 2024. So it's now going to be the Alfa Romeo Monaco Grand Haas F1 team, trying to give a real run for the money, trying to give Aramco cognizant Aston Martin Formula One team a run for the money. The fact that I actually have to take a second breath while saying their name. At $20 million a year extra. Actually, I don't know what's going to happen with MoneyGram. That was a 3-year deal. Ooh, that's a bit awkward. But what wasn't awkward was Nick de Vries. I mean, come on, I gotta give credit for Nick de Vries as well. He had a very quiet weekend, and whilst Tsunoda was floundering around in the rain, unfortunately having a brake problem as well, so it wasn't entirely his fault, de Vries kept it quiet, no accidents, no awkward moments in the rain. He had a really anonymous race, and after all of the stuff he's had the last few races, this is exactly what he's needed. Nick de Vries just needed a quiet race to get on with what he's supposed to do. Good job, Nick de Vries. And good job, Alpine. This was the kind of thing they need and actually secure 5th place in the Constructors and really pull away from McLaren. Whilst McLaren had a very good race, and Lando Norris was steaming it at the end, that was incredible. The Alpine did even better, and they are pretty much quite clear ahead of McLaren. And Ocon getting 3rd place, not putting a foot wrong. I have no idea where he got the speed from, but he's the first Frenchman on the podium since Olivier Panis in that 1996 stellar race where only, like 3 cars finished. But still, good job for Ocon, good job for Gasly as well, really fighting the Ferraris quite convincingly too. That's a really good job for the French team on now what is effectively their home track. I've got to give a shout out as well to Mercedes. It just shows that the upgrades that they have brought are actually somewhat of an improvement. Hamilton likes what he's seen, and I think this pretty much seals the deal on what we can expect. Lewis is going to stay at Mercedes now for the rest of his career. They are now on an upward path. He's happy with the car. He did have to really drive it to the limit for a long time, but there were positive results. They're now on an uptrend. Ferrari seem to be floundering again, and Mercedes are just doing the careful approach and really easily getting second place in the constructors. And lastly, in terms of winners, Leclerc's overalls. Sure, it looks like Charles Leclerc's eaten the fire flower, but yeah, he wasn't on fire, but more on that later. But it's just a really good look. I like those overalls, and I think he should actually wear that more often. It's me, Leclerc. Now we got to get to the losers, and I'm sorry, Lance Stroll. I know I've been very, very patient with you the last couple of weeks. Today, that was awful. If you had a car like last year's where Vettel would at best get 8th place and you were 15th or down below, it wouldn't look so bad. But Fernando Alonso, fighting for the win, getting second place, you weren't even close, making really amateurish mistakes, acting ungainly around Williams, bashing into the barriers all the time, losing a front wing, ultimately retiring. He did not look convincing at all. I'm sorry, Lance, you are so bad today, I'm sending you to the dark pit. Okay, now onto the not-so-bad losers. Ferrari, once again, and Sainz as well, because Sainz had a really bad time with Ocon, making really desperate mistakes, and it really did not help with losing the front wing, and then he was dilly-dally by his pit crew, just going stay out, go in, box to overtake Ocon, stay out. He was being thrown around and screwed around by his pit crew. No wonder he lost his temper. So considering that he had that bad a time, he lost a front wing and he still scored points, that's not bad, but it was not a good day for Sainz in terms of his team. And Ferrari, we thought they'd actually managed to get a good handle on their pit stops. They currently hold the pit record in terms of the fastest pit stop this season, but right now, they're back on form. In terms of, we are checking, they really need to check their performance. The Haas team, my goodness, it's the 150th Grand Prix, but you wouldn't know it. They act like it's their first Grand Prix. Hulkenberg and Magnussen, they weren't really anywhere. Hulkenberg picking up 2 penalties, then going onto the wet tyres where it was clearly not wet tyre weather, and they were just floundering around at the back. Magnussen going off twice. It was just not a good look. This was just really embarrassing for Haas on what is meant to be a milestone race. I don't know what's going on here. They're looking really amateurish. I would send them to the dark bit, but Stroll looked even worse. I have to put Sargent in the losers area, but Sargent, it's his first season in Formula 1, and I liked what Williams were doing. Instead of just boxing him and retiring him just to save face, they actually put Logan on some soft tyres and taught him how a Formula 1 car works when the tyres degrade and there is graining. So, okay, they're actually putting the rookie to good use, and considering that rookies don't really have that much testing time these days, just turn this race into an extended test session. Yes, he was near the back, but I'm pretty sure he managed to learn some good intel on tyres that were really not fitted to this track. I think this might be positive for Logan, but I still have to put him in the losers because he was really down at the back, and he was just... that moment when he lost 4 positions in a few laps, that was rough. Then I've got to say Checo, because his street cred has really fallen down. This was not good. He showed too much heroics into Saint-Devot, as we've been told not to do many times by Jeff. He then bins the car and has to basically have most of his parts changed and starts at the back and doesn't really threaten anybody. And then he gives poor Adrian Newey an aneurysm when the car's just gangling in the air and everyone can see the floor. But when Checo also damaged his front wing and the whole thing was Stroll, again, it was just a little bit of Palmer karma in my opinion. But took Lance Stroll on the chicane, and then he tried to do the same with Hulkenberg, and it was like, bad wing, oh, karma. But in terms of my predictions, I'm quite happy because I guessed Hamilton and Russell for 4th and 5th and I got it right. Alonso was only 1 position off and Max was only 2 positions off. So actually, apart from Checo, my top 5 wasn't bad. So that wasn't bad too. Let me know how your top 5 performed and I'll see you in Catalonia.